Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Veil. It is absolutely fantastic to have you with us today. We're going to dig into something that I think has been sort of hovering on the edge of everyone's consciousness lately.
It's great to be back. And you're right, hovering is the perfect word for it. It's this background hum that people are feeling, but, rarely saying out loud.
Exactly. But before we get into the heavy stuff, I have to ask, does the world just feel a little bit louder than usual to you lately?
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't just mean volume, like construction noise. I mean the sheer velocity of it all. I was looking at the news this morning, just trying to catch up, and it felt like I was drinking from a fire hose of collective exhaustion.
And fire hose, yeah. There is a tangible heaviness in the air right now. It feels like everyone is walking around with this low-grade fever, but the fever is just information overload.
That is such a visceral way to put it. And if you are feeling that pressure, if you want a deeper and more advanced and accurate take on spirituality to help navigate it, this podcast is for you. We aren't just skimming the surface today. We are going right to the root of that exhaustion.
We certainly are. We're exploring a phenomenon that is happening everywhere, but is almost taboo to discuss.
Yeah, we're looking at a really powerful piece of writing by master psychic Spiritwalker, who's often referred to just as Spirit. The article is titled, "Why So Many People Want to Disappear Right Now Without Dying." And I have to be honest, when I saw that title, I actually stopped scrolling. It felt like he was reading my diary.
It's a provocative title, isn't it? But it points to something very, very real. The Spirit Walker is addressing this pervasive feeling, this urge that so many people are afraid to voice because it sounds so alarming.
Right, because if you say, "I want to disappear" at a dinner party, people immediately panic. They think you mean self-harm or that you're clinically depressed or you're going to abandon your family and move to a cave.
Precisely. The alarm bells go off. But Spirit Walker makes a massive distinction here right out of the gate, and it's really the foundation of our whole discussion. He says this isn't about ending life. It's not even really about hopelessness.
So if it's not hopelessness, then what is it?
He argues that from a spiritual perspective, this desire to vanish isn't a sign of failure or mental illness. It's a sign of wisdom.
Wisdom. Okay, let's unpack that. Because usually if I tell someone I want to run away to a cabin and never speak to anyone again, I just tell myself I'm being weak or lazy or, avoiding my responsibility.
Well, that's the modern conditioning talking. We are trained to think that endurance is the only virtue.
Cool.
But let's look at the root cause Spirit Walker identifies. He calls it overexposure. We aren't just tired, we are overexposed.
Overexposed to what, though?
To everything. To the sheer demand of modern existence. Spirit Walker lists out the types of demand we're under. Emotional demand, financial, social, informational demand.
And the one that really surprised me in the text? Spiritual demand.
Yes, that is such a critical point.
Because usually we think of spirituality as the escape, right?
Yeah.
As the place you go to rest. But he's saying even that has become a job.
Exactly. The source material highlights that there's almost zero space left in modern life to simply be without input. Even in spiritual circles, there's this pressure to ascend, to heal, to process your trauma, to manifest. We are constantly expected to have an opinion or to react to some urgency or meet an expectation. The phrase he uses that really struck me is that the exhaustion comes from being reachable all the time.
Reachable all the time. Wow, that hits home. It's the idea that because I can be reached via text, email, Slack, and DM, I must be reached and I must respond.
And Spirit Walker mentions that this hits a specific group of people harder. He specifically mentions sensitive people, empaths, intuitives, and old souls. If you fall into those categories, you aren't just observing the noise, you are absorbing it.
You're like a sponge in a dirty bucket of water.
That's a gross image, but yes. You are metabolizing the collective stress. This creates what he calls soul fatigue.
Soul fatigue? That feels different than just body fatigue.
It is. Sleep doesn't fix soul fatigue. You can sleep for 12 hours and wake up exhausted. Because the problem isn't physical exertion. The problem is the constant pulling on your energy field. The desire to disappear isn't a wish to stop existing, as Spirit puts it. It means they want to stop being pulled on.
I love that distinction. It's not I want to leave, it's I want you to let go of me. But there's a biological component to this too, right? This isn't just abstract spiritual theory. The source talks about the nervous system.
It does, and this is where it gets really validating for anyone listening who feels this way. Spirit Walker explains that this is a nervous system defense. When we're in a prolonged state of alert, and think about the world right now, political tension, environmental scares, financial pressure, the nervous system eventually hunts for safety.
It's stuck in fight or flight.
Exactly. And when you can't fight the whole world and you can't physically fly away, the mind starts to simulate flight. The body's wisdom is saying, I cannot process this much data. It's screaming, I need fewer inputs. I need a smaller world for a while.
A smaller world. That is such a comforting image. It reminds me of when I was a kid and I'd build a fort out of blankets. It wasn't about hiding from monsters. It was just about making the world small enough to control.
That is a perfect analogy. You are practicing sensory gating. And it explains why so many adults today are fantasizing about specific things. The source lists them. Cabins, deserts, forests, vans, islands.
Oh, the van life fantasy. I have browsed those hashtags on Instagram more times than I care to admit. Driving away into the woods, living in a Sprinter van.
You and half the population. But Spiritwalker corrects us here. He says these are not escape fantasies. They are regulation fantasies.
Wait, that is a huge shift in perspective. So I'm not trying to run away from responsibility. I'm trying to regulate my biology.
Correct. You are trying to find an environment where your nervous system can actually come down from high alert. If you're constantly scanning for threats, which the modern news cycle essentially forces us to do, you never rest. The fantasy of the cabin is just a fantasy of a place where there are no new inputs to process.
That makes me feel so much better about my Zillow searches for cabins in the middle of nowhere. It's not avoidance, it's medicinal.
It is medicinal. But since we're looking at this beyond the veil, we have to talk about the spiritual side. Spiritwalker brings up this fascinating idea of the hermit phase.
Yes, let's talk about the hermit. Because in tarot, the hermit is a wise figure, but in real life, if you act like a hermit, people think you're weird.
True. But Spiritwalker reminds us that in ancient traditions and cultures, this urge to withdraw was honored. It was a known phase of life. You had the hermit, the wanderer, the one who goes into the wilderness.
Right, like the vision quest or the monk in the cave. It was a rite of passage.
Exactly. He uses a beautiful metaphor. The person who steps away from the village fire to tend their own flame.
I love that visual because the village fire is loud, it's chaotic, everyone is talking, there's smoke everywhere.
And sometimes you can't tell if your own light is burning because the bonfire of society is so bright and overwhelming. In the past, stepping away was seen as necessary for the health of the individual and the community. You went away to get clarity, and then you brought it back.
But modern society hates that.
It views it as a threat.
If you step away now, you're quiet quitting, or you're antisocial, or you're lazy. We have this obsession with constant visibility.
We pathologize the need for solitude. But Spiritwalker defines this not as avoidance, but as a necessary integration stage. He points out that old systems, social, economic, moral, they're cracking right now. When the structures around you feel unstable, the soul instinctively pulls inward to find stable ground.
It's like when a computer freezes and you have to do a hard reset. You can't click opening tabs. You have to shut it down for a second.
That's a great way to put it. He says you can't hear your own spirit clearly when the world is shouting. And right now, the world is screaming.
So true. Now, I want to pivot for a second. We're talking about this need to pull back, to find a sanctuary. But for people listening who are thinking, okay, I feel this, but I can't just move to a cave. I need guidance. I need tools right here, right now. Where do they actually go?
That is the practical question. And it actually brings us to the platform that hosts a lot of this wisdom. We're drawing this information from the world of starseed psychics and nomadic enterprises.
Right, and looking at their marketplace, it seems like they've built a literal sanctuary for this kind of thing. It's not just a blog, it's a whole ecosystem.
It is. Their mission is pretty clear: to provide profound spiritual connection and authentic guidance. It's founded by Master Psychic Spiritwalker, who wrote the article we are discussing, and Psychic Gypsy Wind.
And I was looking through their offerings, and it's not just one thing. It's incredibly broad. They have these very specific readings: archangel readings, elemental readings, shamanic readings.
And healings, too. Reiki, chakra services, psychic healing. It's really designed for the learner profile people who are curious but need deep, accurate info, not just fluff.
And I have to mention the products, because some of them are just perfect for this conversation. They have a bourbon barrel apothecary, which just sounds amazing. But they also have spiritual cell phone accessories.
Which is ironic, isn't it?
It is. We're talking about how the phone is the source of the stress, but they're offering spiritual accessories for it.
Well, it makes sense if you think about it. If you can't throw the phone away because you need it for your job or your kids, you have to protect your energy while using it. It's about adaptation.
That's a good point. It's about shielding yourself in the environment you're actually in.
Exactly. And they also have blogs like Forgotten Wisdom and the Starseed Psychics blog. So there's a lot of reading material there if you want to go down the rabbit hole.
But
Seems like Spiritwalker and Gypsy Wind, she's the co-founder, have really created a hub for people who are feeling this specific soul fatigue.
it's a resource for the pruning season we are about to discuss.
Yes, love to get back to that concept.
Because even with the biological explanation and the spiritual history, there is still this nagging guilt. I think a lot of us have this internal narrative that says, if I step back, I'm failing. I'm wasting my potential.
Spiritwalker addresses that head on. He deconstructs the failure narrative completely. He says that the people who feel this urge, the urge to disappear, are often the ones who are deeply thoughtful and deeply caring.
So it's not that they don't care enough, it's that they care too much.
In a sense. He says they aren't running from life. They are running from distortion.
Ooh, running from distortion. That is powerful. What does he mean by that?
Think about the curated lives we see online, the corporate jargon, the forced positivity. It's all a distortion of reality. Spiritwalker argues that these people want life, but they want it in a truer, slower, more embodied form. They're tired of the masks. They're tired of the performances.
It resonates so much. It's like craving a home-cooked meal after eating fast food for a month. You just want something real.
Exactly. The soul wants anonymity. It wants quiet routines. But here is the most critical distinction in the text, and I want listeners to really hear this. There is a difference between healthy disappearing and unhealthy dissolving.
Okay, lay it out for us. Because we need to know the warning signs. What is unhealthy dissolving?
Unhealthy dissolving is isolation without support. It's numbness. It's self-erasure. It's looking at the ceiling and wishing you didn't exist at all. That is dangerous. That is where you lose the tether to yourself.
Right, and healthy disappearing.
Healthy disappearing is intentional. It involves grounding. It involves boundaries. The mantra he gives is, I'm still here. I just need less.
I'm still here, I just need less. I feel like I need to write that on a sticky note and put it on my forehead.
It's a declaration of presence, not absence. You are asserting your right to exist without consuming or being consumed. You're saying, I am valid even if I am not producing or performing right now.
So, if we accept that this is healthy and wise, what do we actually do? Because most of us have jobs, kids, bills, we can't just vanish into the ether. What does Spiritwalker suggest for the practical application?
He calls this the pruning season.
Pruning, like a gardener.
Exactly. Think about a rose bush. If you let it grow wild, it gets leggy and weak. You have to cut back the dead branches and even some of the living ones so the plant can concentrate its energy. It's not about vanishing from the world entirely. It's about choosing how you show up.
So what are the strategies? How do we prune our lives?
He lists a few very actionable ones. First, fewer conversations but deeper ones.
Oh, I like that. No more small talk about the weather or the latest celebrity scandal.
Right. It means giving yourself permission to opt out of the surface level noise. If a conversation drains you, you don't have to stay in it. Another one, less media, more silence.
That's the hard one. The silence can be intimidating.
It is, because in the silence, you have to face yourself. But he says it's essential for the nervous system to recalibrate. He also suggests stronger boundaries without guilt.
Without guilt is the key phrase there.
It is. And finally, more listening than reacting.
More listening than reacting. That feels like the antidote to the internet right now. Everyone is reacting instantly. Hot takes, instant outrage.
And that reaction takes energy. Every time you get angry at a headline, every time you formulate a mental argument against a stranger online, you are spending energy. You're spending currency you might need for your own life, for your creativity, for your peace. Spiritwalker's advice is to stop spending that currency so freely.
It's about reclaiming your inner space. You know, reading through the source material, the overwhelming feeling I get is relief.
Relief.
Yeah. Relief that I'm not broken. Spiritwalker has this beautiful reassurance at the end. He says, you are responding intelligently to a world that has become too loud.
That is the key takeaway. If you are feeling this, you aren't weak. You aren't failing life. You are actually listening to a very deep, very ancient part of yourself that knows you cannot sustain this pace.
And he says, you don't want to disappear. You want to come back to yourself.
That's the crux of it. The noise of the world has drowned out the self. The silence is just the path back home.
It's such a beautiful reframing. It turns a crisis into an opportunity for, what did he call it, a reset.
A spiritual and nervous system reset. It's a pruning season. And just like in nature, after the pruning comes the growth. But you have to endure the quiet winter first. You have to be okay with looking a little bare for a season.
Well, this has certainly given me permission to decline a few social invitations this weekend without feeling guilty about it. I'm just going to tell them I'm in my pruning season.
I think that's a valid excuse.
We are coming to the end of our time, but I want to make sure listeners know where to find more of this, because we've really just skimmed the surface of what Master Spiritwalker and Psychic Gypsy Wind offer.
Absolutely. If this resonated with you, there's a lot more depth to explore in their full body of work. We touched on the article, but the philosophy goes much deeper.
Yes, and for those of you who want to go deeper, we have included a link in the description. You can purchase books by author Spiritwalker, that's Master Psychic Spiritwalker, and author Cheyenne James, who is Psychic Gypsy Wind. They have a wealth of knowledge that goes way beyond this single article.
Highly recommended if you're looking for that sanctuary we talked about. It's good to have a guide when you're entering the hermit phase.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a thought. It's something that came up for me while reading this text, and I think it's a question we should all sit with. We talked about the need to explain ourselves constantly, to perform for the world. So, if you stopped explaining yourself to the world for just 24 hours, no posts, no justifications, no defending your choices, who would you be in that silence?
That is the question. And I think the answer might surprise us.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. We will see you in the next episode.
Take care of your energy.
Bye for now.